As a PS4 owner, if you're interested in improving your gameplay at all, whether it's for competitive reasons or just trying to have better control in games, you probably looked into controllers with rear-mounted buttons at some point, and realizing that your only options were to go with either third-party companies like SCUF, or finding ways to adapt the Elite and Elite 2 controllers by using devices like the Cronus Max Plus. Either way, both of these options come in right at around $200 or higher in the case of SCUF, depending on the options you've spec'd out. A price range that is out of reach for many, and unless you're a real enthusiast, the value proposition didn't make sense either, considering that the money that you're spending could get you a console like this Switch Lite. Well, Sony has heard your pleas and has come out with what I think is a really elegant solution. What they've come up with is this DualShock 4 back button attachment, and it goes for a very reasonably priced $30. It has two rear mounted buttons and has satisfying clicks even when compared to the Elite 2. Yes, the Elite 2 controller does have 4 rear buttons, but you're also paying a lot more, and to be honest, 2 already makes a pretty big difference. It also has a headphone jack and an OLED screen that shows your current button mappings along with profile that is currently selected, and it also doubles as a button to configure your preferred key mappings and switch between your saved profiles. My only complaint in this area is that the screen and menu button is located in the rear. The OLED display, from what I can tell, is quite small and actually doesn't use the full area of the circle, so it would have been nice to have this located in the front instead. So if they came up with something like this mockup I have here, that would have been perfect. Before we get into how this device works, we need to attach it to a controller. If you look at the device's connectors, you'll see that it pivots back and forth. This is needed because the connector ports on the controller is angled. When you go to insert the device, first align the 3.5mm headphone pole with the connector on the controller. Once it makes contact, push directly forward from the bottom. The pivot we saw earlier on the connector will do its thing and create a perfect connection not only in the front, but will give you a super flush fitment in the rear as well. I'm actually very surprised at how well this device fits with the contours of the PS4 controller. The controller with the attachment fits very nicely in the hand, and with how it's shaped, your middle finger naturally rests where the buttons actuate. The grip might be strange at first, but with a little investment in time to get familiar with the button positioning and allowing yourself to build the muscle memory to fully utilize the additional inputs, you're going to start wondering how you even gamed without this in the first place. The additional weight isn't too much. In fact, it adds a really nice heft to it. One drawback of this device is that if you have bottom mounting charging stations or phone mounts, those unfortunately will no longer work. To set up the device, there is an OLED screen in the rear. A single tap will show you the current profile that you're on, along with the current mapping. There's also an animation that indicates that the screen is about to turn off and go to sleep, which I think is a very nice UI touch. Double tap will allow you to cycle through your stored profiles, of which you can store up to 3, and remapping the controls is really easy to do. Go to the profile you want to adjust using single taps, then hold down the screen button. When you see the profile number flashing, tap the back button you want to remap to cycle through the various options. Once you're happy with your selection, go ahead and tap the screen one more time to commit the changes. The changes you've made to your profile are saved to the attachment's onboard memory, so moving it between controllers does not wipe your profiles. They go with it. If you're new to a device like this, the wide range of combinations can be a bit overwhelming, so I'm going to share with you my 2 main profiles. My first profile is mapped to cross and circle. This is as close as you're going to get to a universal setting. It works really well in the UI by letting you select and back out of menus with the rear buttons, while your finger can rest on the other option buttons like the square and triangle, but it also works really well in games. Using Spider-Man and Horizon Zero Dawn as an example, this configuration allows you to jump and dodge while maintaining full control of your character's directional camera instead of having to quickly switch between the buttons and the joystick. This significantly increases your ability to make well-timed dodges and counterattacks. The second mapping is tailored to FPS games like Call of Duty Modern Warfare. For this, I have the mapping set to L2 and R2, and with this configuration, I can get instant trigger pulls and I can keep my index fingers on L1 and R1 for things like flashbangs and nades. You're really only limited by your imagination and what you're comfortable with. So play around with the options and yeah, just see what works for you. If you're using a PS4 controller on other devices like PC, Android, or iOS, you'll be happy to hear that as long as the platform supports PS4 controller layouts, the mapping for this attachment will work without an issue. I've been using Steam Link a lot lately, and this has been working perfectly. Now, after spending a whole week with this thing, I can wholeheartedly say that I really love this add-on, even with my minor gripe about the OLED screen and menu positioning. I know that this release comes late into the PS4 lifecycle, but I think it's a smart choice by Sony to release a lower cost option instead of going for a PS4 Elite Pro style controller. On one hand, Sony gets to gauge the interest from consumers while saving a full controller implementation for the PS5. And consumers get what they've been asking for at a much lower cost. So if you can afford to pick one up, I would highly recommend it. Now moving into the PlayStation 5 generation, I would really like to see Sony continue releasing a low-cost option like this, along with an Elite or Pro edition of the DualShock 5. I really think that anyone that really enjoys games should be given the opportunity to try something like this out, and by targeting two different price points will make the feature much more accessible. It's kind of a shame that the Xbox crowd doesn't have a low-cost option like this, and I would really hate to see that happen with PlayStation fans as well. Well, that's it for today. Have you guys had a chance to play around with controllers with rear-mounted buttons? Let me know the different configurations you've used in games below. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, it really helps me out, and I'll see you guys next time.